Today on Dylan Talks Tone, we're going to talk about first guitars. We're going to talk about why it's important to have a good first guitar, and is the new Squier Sonic Series, this model or the ones like it, a good $199 place to start. When I was a kid, I started playing guitar when I was 6. And I know that maybe is a surprise to you because you're like, man, he still sucks. Yes, I do. You all know that my focus is not on my own guitar playing, but it's on your guitar playing. So we'll just leave that one. We'll just leave that one alone. So when I was a kid, my dad played jazz. And I didn't want to play jazz. I wanted to play rock and roll, man. I had a guitar. And I did what I could to learn the kind of music that I wanted to learn, but it took me a long time to get to the tone and stuff that I wanted, because my first guitar was a Strat, and my first amp was a PV Studio Pro 40 solid state, and I'm like sitting here trying to sound super metal and rock and roll with single coils and a solid state 40-watt PV. It was impossible. Times have changed. To get a good beginner guitar for just a couple $100 is easy these days. Fender recently released the Sonic series of Squier guitars, and the idea of this was sort of an update to their very beginner stuff that they had before, kind of their entry level into the Fender lineup. We're going to talk about one of these guitars today, and the reason I picked this one in general is because, you know, sometimes dad or grandpa or uncle so-and-so or that older friend of the family may have a Telecaster, but it's just not rock and roll enough for a kid. But maybe, you know, he kind of wants to be like dad or uncle or grandfather or mom, or aunt or whoever, right? Like they have role models in their family, but they just want to be a little more rock and roll. So that's why I picked this one, to kind of go through and see if this thing is any good and if it is worth buying for a beginner entry-level instrument. We're going to go through the specs. You're going to hear it. I'm going to show you the cool things about it. And then I'm going to tell you why I think this is probably one of the best ways, especially if you're a Fender person or a Fender family, or you have a student or a younger person who wants to learn guitar, but you're a little worried about investing a lot of money into it until they, you know, make the commitment to play. For $199, this might be a pretty good bet. This is a poplar body Telecaster. Some people wonder about the choice of using poplar, but I will tell you that it is a Squier, and I think this one is made in Indonesia. Yeah, so poplar is actually way more available in Indonesia. We've done other podcasts and stuff about why Squiers come in different woods, and it actually has to do with a lot of availability to the Asian factories more than it does tone or design. It's just an availability situation. So that's why they use poplar. Nothing wrong with poplar, especially when it's painted. It looks great, it feels great, it's very light. This guitar is very light. And one of the ways they did that is they made the body about 1/4 inch or a little less thinner than a stock Telecaster. So you can see here we've got the measurements between the two. I can't remember what they are, so we'll just throw them on the screen. I've got my American Vintage 2 Telecaster right up here, and we've got this one measured. Now, that being said, for those of you that are modders in the future, maybe you want to do something cool, we'll talk about a couple of those things in a few minutes. Back to the general specs. We've got a 1.650 nut width, which is a pretty standard Telecaster nut width. The old Bullet Squiers had a real narrow nut, which this is a little bit more human, which will make, as a student, a transition into another Squier or another Fender a lot easier, because this neck profile is very much more similar to a regular Fender, where the Bullet ones used to be a little small. It's got a synthetic bone nut. It's got the modern tuners. This might be one of the little weak points of the tuners. We're gonna probably do a mod video and we're gonna change these out. They're pretty good, but they're definitely a budget piece here. You can tell that here. It's a 9.5 inch radius fretboard with smaller frets than bigger, but for a entry-level student guitar, that makes a lot of sense. And it just feels great. There's been a lot of questions. Now, I've had a lot of Squiers. I've bought a lot of Squiers for projects over the years, and we've built up many, many, many guitars. I will tell you, this is one of the best. These fret ends are almost perfectly finished. I would say they're great. I've had Squiers of this level of price be terrible before, but this is phenomenally good. Really, really good. We've got a 6-saddle bridge here. This is a top loader bridge. A lot of guitar enthusiasts may look down on a top loader bridge, but don't worry about it. Everything's going to be fine. The screws aren't going to pull out or any of those weird things that you might have read on forums. The guitar's going to sound great. It's going to feel great. It's fine. As you can see, because we have one they call it ceramic humbucker. We've just got a volume and a tone here, volume tone, and no switch. And the controls are flipped around, which is kind of cool. And, just a bridge humbucker. It's a very basic guitar, but it sounds actually really good. Those of us that are kind of guitar enthusiasts, and we might enjoy a less expensive platform to put a bunch of cool stuff on, which is what we're going to do with this guitar. I've got one of our Dylan Talks Tone Clear Super 8 humbuckers that we're going to put in here, and then I've got a set of Clusen tuners that we're going to put on this thing, and maybe a couple other little things, and give this a bit of an upgrade and make it into something really cool. We'll probably do that in an upcoming video. But it's going to be a really kind of a fun little project, right? For $199, it's a low point of entry. It might be a good place to start for some projects. But in the past, Bullet Squiers have been very bad about this because of their thinner body. So I'm going to show you a couple of things about this one. So we talked about that thinner body a couple of minutes ago. However, when you take this control plate off and you drop in a regular Oak Grigsby electro switch, which is what Fender uses in all of their, their good stuff, their American stuff and all that stuff. It's still deep enough to use that. Now, as you can also see, you've got the 7mm mini pots. They're made by Alpha, so they're actually pretty good. So you would have to replace probably this plate, because if you wanted to put a switch in here, you would have to replace the plate and get one with a slot in it. We actually make a drop-in thing with all the stuff, switch, knobs, the whole deal, because when you take this pick guard off, underneath the pickguard, it's actually routed for a humbucker. So you could put a humbucker in here, or you could put a regular tele pickup with a different pickguard on here of your choice and make it into basically whatever guitar you wanted. You could put a couple humbuckers in it, you could put a tele pickup in here. Now you probably would be sort of stuck with the humbucker route in the bridge of this particular guitar, but putting another humbucker in there would be very cool, or a humbucker sized P90, for example. And then we, of course, we carry all that stuff. But then obviously the drop-in control set for it, we carry that as well. So you wouldn't have to buy a bunch of extra parts. And then your pots, your switch, your cap, and your jack would all be upgraded. One of the other things I like about this guitar is on less expensive guitars, sometimes this jack mount is a little bit cheesy, but this one is actually very good. This is a good guitar. Are there other off-brand Telecaster copies for $200? Yes, there are. Why do I think it's important if you are trying to inspire a younger guitar player or a new guitar player who maybe not be younger, don't have to be young, to start playing guitar? Why do I think that it's important to start with a Squier product when you are trying to inspire someone to play guitar? You might think that's a little bit brand snobby, but there is a method to my madness. We talked earlier about the value of role models in guitar, right? And if you are someone who in your family has Fender products, I've got this American Vintage 2 here. I love this guitar. It's phenomenally good. And if I were to encourage someone to play guitar, I would tell them to get one of these, or maybe the conventionally pick-up version, or maybe the Strat version of this $200 guitar, to dip their toes into a guitar that then you can build on for the rest of your guitar playing career. And for somebody who wants to be like dad, or somebody who wants to be like mom, or uncle, or aunt somebody, or grandparent, the role model aspect can be powerful. And so getting kind of in the family, if that makes sense, of Fender products with the Squier, because it is good enough to do. This guitar is really good, and it's definitely worth $199, even to those of us that are more seasoned enthusiasts, we'll call it, who want to actually do a bunch of mods and do various things. This is not your normal Bullet. They've made some nice updates to this guitar that have made it really good. A good first guitar is important. If you don't have a good first guitar, you're going to sour the experience of a new guitar player. And maybe they won't want to play as much because their guitar sucks. And that's kind of why I think this, and maybe not this particular model, but this series in general is really, really cool. Let me know what you think. What was your first guitar? Put that in the comments. Was your first guitar something you had to mess with, or was it just pretty good out of the box? Let us know in the comments below. Also, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the like button, because we're going to have a whole nother, and the little notification bell, because we're going to have a whole video about this. We're going to upgrade some stuff. We're going to put new pots in it. Maybe we might do some sort of cool circuit. I don't know. We're going to do some cool stuff with this guitar, and definitely new tuners. So, thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you in the next video.